Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. As I said on Monday, today we're taking a slight break from doing some roster breakdowns to take some time to talk about the Overwatch League Pro-Am, because this past weekend we got our first weekend of the Pro-Am, and it'll be starting again tomorrow. We get the second weekend of the Pro-Am, but I want to take some time today to just kind of talk about it a little bit because I haven't talked about it yet in any kind of real major way. So this video is going to be pretty casual. I'm mostly going to kind of give you some of my takeaways, things I really liked from the Pro-Am this first weekend of it, and then I'll give you some kind of loose predictions for what I'm expecting this weekend in terms of like how I think teams will do. Like I said, nothing too like specific or nothing too like I don't know the word I'm trying to think of. Nothing too crazy, just a very like simple kind of laid back, some more casual video talking about the Pro-Am because I thought it was pretty good and I thought it was a fun time, and so I just want to kind of give my thoughts on it and let everyone kind of know how I'm feeling about what we saw. So just to kind of start with the overall format of the Pro-Am and the idea behind the Pro-Am being a preseason tournament. That's essentially what this is. It's the first Overwatch League preseason since 2019, I think. So a preseason tournament where we're getting not just Overwatch League teams, but also teams from contenders, which I think is really, really cool and always a really good thing to see. So I enjoy it a lot. I think it's really, really nice to kind of have that. And I like that we get to kind of see some of that competition because we don't see that competition a lot. And I think one of the things with the Overwatch League that is understandable when you consider the format and the fact that there's investors that have put a lot of money into the league, like they're going to try to keep their teams competitive with the other teams in their region. And they're not going to try to spread out and go and play in like tournaments and stuff where they could potentially kind of look bad and lose games or something like that. So I think it's interesting to kind of see the way that the league is opening up quite a bit with this season. At least I don't know what the stance of a lot of the ownership groups are. I know that a lot of them have been kind of not promoting the Pro-Am a ton, but I think that that's kind of a weird way to get what you want. You're not going to promote the thing that you need to do well to make money back, but getting off topic already. But generally speaking, I really like the way the format works. And I like the kind of overall event of it. I think that it's really nice to kind of have Overwatch League teams and contenders teams compete together kind of the only way you can. I think it's a really good tool as well for like GMs for scouting. I mean, you think about like the way the World Cup was back in 2018, 2019, how people played in the World Cup in 2018 and 2019 and 2017 as well, had a pretty somewhat noticeable impact on what players got signed to the Overwatch League the following year. Like Gushui, incredible in World Cup 2018, gets signed to the Hangzhou Spark. Maybe he would have been on the Spark otherwise, but very, very likely his performance in the World Cup in 2018 was a big part of why he got signed. And the same can be said for Brusen in the 2019 World Cup, where Team Netherlands looked really, really good. He ended up getting a spot on the Boston Uprising. And so I think we're going to see a similar trend here, where teams that only have 5 players, a team like Vancouver, the Valiant, I don't think we'll add anybody, but who knows. The Eternal are rumored to have someone else, but, they're in that kind of similar boat, where there's some teams that only have like 5 players. They absolutely might be looking to add a player from the Pro-Am, right? Oh, this guy was really, really good in the Pro-Am. We have a hole here. Let's bring this person in, right? Like maybe Vancouver looks and says, we want to find the best flex support from the Pro-Am who impresses us the most, then we'll bring them in. So I think that's kind of the idea I think that you have with this tournament, is that it is very good for scouting talent because you get to see them play against Overwatch League teams. And if they hold their own against, OWL opponents, that tells you a lot about kind of where they are and kind of what their overall kind of level of performance is if they're playing against OWL pros. So I think that's a really nice thing to see. And so I thought it was really, really good in that way. And I'm excited to kind of see more as we get into next week or this weekend, I guess. I also was a really big fan of just the kind of overall like production of it and the way that the show is. I know on Plat Chat yesterday, I want to say it was Custa said that they have a different like producer now. They have a different like kind of esports group helping run Watchpoint. I love the way that Watchpoint was done. I thought it was way more streamlined. I really loved the kind of overall change to production where you could see kind of the upcoming topics. They had the schedule on the screen at the bottom while Watchpoint was going on. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a very good kind of streamlined way to get to it. Something that I noticed a lot that I don't know if everyone will notice it as well as I did. But one of my biggest issues with kind of the past few seasons of the Overwatch League is the time between the desk throwing it to the casters and the game actually starting was pretty long in the past. It would be like 5-6 minutes sometimes because they'd go to the casters would preview the rosters, and then the game would begin. But now they do the roster starting lineups in Watchpoint. So when they flip it to the casters, it's like a minute, 2 minutes tops, and then the games begin. They've kind of cut out some of the like pre-lobby, like as we go into the game type of stuff. So they've really streamlined it to be like very like once they go into the game, once they cut to the game feed, that you're about to get into the game. And I like that a lot. I think it's a really good way to kind of make it feel better and kind of streamline it and kind of kill some of that downtime. And it, I don't like losing some of the kind of interaction you get before games. You don't get that much usually at the beginning of games. But that's something that I noticed that I liked a lot. It was very streamlined. Things feel very quick. They move very well. So that was something that I did really, really like. I guess on a more like kind of nitpicky bit in terms of like the production and just the overall like format, I wish there were drops. You could have gotten Overwatch tokens other than like being the one person to redeem a code from chat. But I do think it was overall a pretty solid like system, and I think that there was a lot to kind of take away. And I do think it overall was a very, very strong kind of format that I really am excited for the rest of the Pro-Am this weekend, and then also the one in the midseason. Because very likely some of these same teams might have a spot in the next Pro-Am. Like Saints was the best team. Will we see them again? Will we see a new team kind of rise through the ranks of contenders to get a spot in the Pro-Am? Or is it going to be a lot of the same teams, right? I think it's going to be really interesting to kind of see as we get to the middle of the season, and also kind of see how rosters change and evolve, and also kind of judging teams' performances in this Pro-Am and the next Pro-Am. Like, Vegas had a pretty bad performance in the Pro-Am, but maybe Vegas goes into this next Pro-Am and looks pretty good. Maybe they look much more improved. Maybe they look much cleaner. Maybe they don't advance out of their group. Maybe they just show a much better sign, and like you start to feel like, okay, this team has kind of shown the improvement you would want to see. So all in all, I think the format's really cool. I think it's great to kind of get contenders teams with the Overwatch League teams. I think just helps kind of create the scene, and I think it helps promote Tier 2, right? And so I think all that kind of connects to itself, right? When you have contenders playing on the Overwatch League channel, that is a very positive thing for contenders, because now I, as a viewer, as someone who doesn't really have the time to follow Overwatch League and contenders and World Cup and Calling All Heroes like all super closely, it can be difficult sometimes. So I try to keep up with kind of the teams that are performing well, the teams that are playing kind of at the top of their thing. I always try to catch finals when I can, but for me, the Overwatch League takes priority. I'll always watch the Overwatch League first. And if I can only pick one thing to watch, I'm going to watch the Overwatch League. But I will dip into the other tournaments and stuff as they go, especially as they get kind of later and the bigger teams kind of go, or at least like check on the standings. I'll look at the table. I'll kind of go to the Wikipedia page or whatever and kind of track what's going on to see what teams are doing well. So the best part about having a Pro-Am is that you get to actually see those players compete on the Overwatch League channel against Overwatch League teams as a part of this kind of introductory tournament, which I think helps a lot. It brings recognition to those names so that when they potentially join the Overwatch League a year or two from now, however long it takes them to get into the league, you have that kind of moment of, oh, I remember watching this guy play in the Pro-Am. He was really, really good. I'm excited to see what he does on this team. Or, like someone like Tree, who I know Tree is a big name. I've known about Tree now for a while. Finally got to see him play against Overwatch League teams. I'm like, cool. So now I know what to expect more from him as he goes. You get to kind of see where you're at as a contenders player as well. You get to kind of see how skilled you are, how you match up against some of those teams that are, these are pros. These are guys who are getting paid money to play for the league. A lot of contenders guys aren't making much money, right? And so I think there's this kind of cool natural connection when you get to build up the contenders scene, the Tier 2 scene within the Overwatch League. And I think it makes, in general, contenders way more of a viable route and something that people are going to be way more willing to kind of jump in on. I'm hoping it helps kind of the spur of collegiate. I think collegiate really is kind of the future for Tier 2. I think they really need to embrace it more. I think that collegiate tournaments need to be connected to the Tier 2 circuit more. I think that they should have kind of separate qualifiers. You can go through collegiate, you can go through contenders, and then based on how you perform in those two areas, you then go into like a shared tournament pool. But that's a whole nother discussion once again. But I think it's really cool to kind of get contenders and get Tier 2 and Tier 1 together, kind of integrated together, which is always nice to see. It's also really cool to see contenders teams win games against Owl teams. I don't think a lot of people expected to see many. I think there was definitely people who looked at Saints, they had to play Vegas and the Valiant. I think a lot of people kind of expected Saints to win those two games and maybe beat the Spitfire. Of course, they did not, but Saints finished third in their group at 2-2, losses to Atlanta and London, wins against the Valiant and the Vegas Eternal. So, that was a really cool thing to see. I don't think many people expected Trick Room to beat Shock. I certainly didn't expect it, and that was really nice to see. And one of the best games of the tournament was even two contenders teams, right? Trick Room versus Timeless. The only game that we got the entire weekend between two contenders teams was Trick Room and Timeless. It was the last game of the weekend, and I honestly thought it was one of the better matches. It was very fun, it was very interesting, it was very exciting, kind of getting to see how teams play, getting to see some of the upcoming talent doing their thing was really, really nice. I'm a big Wub head, Wub head, rise up, love my Wub. So I think that was a really good part of it as well, getting to kind of see where all of the talent is and getting to see contenders teams beat Overwatch League teams. Because I think it kind of shows you where the scene is at in general. You can make what you will about the Shock having massive amounts of ping. They definitely did not play super well their first two games that first day. They also didn't play great in their game against Timeless, but Timeless just was not as tough of an opponent for them at that point in time. Though Timeless beat Trick Room, so make of that as you will. But we saw them definitely improve over time and kind of figure out what their holes were. But it kind of shows you the idea of, like, if you're perceived as a very, very good team, even if you have a bad day, you are not invincible, right? Like, and I think that's a huge wake-up call for the Shock in general, right? And all the teams, like, if you have a bad, there's only 6 games, right, per qualifier. It's like, you can't be, like, slacking. You have to stay on top of your game. And I think that's kind of the wake-up call to be like, yeah, any team can beat you if they have the coordination, if they have the synergy and they have the understanding of what they're doing. Like, that's something that you can easily lose to in a Pro-Am or even just the Overwatch League, right? You take it up to the next level, right? Shock lost a Trick Room in, where they didn't look great. What happens if they play a team like New York, a team like Washington, a team like the Gladiators, right? Like, they're not an invincible team. And so I think it kind of shows you the fact that, like, the game is in a very interesting spot where there's a lot of viability in different ways, different compositions that are good, different metas that kind of favor different teams, but also, like, you can really be pretty flexible, which I thought was also really cool about the Pro-Am. Was some teams ran a lot of Ramatra, some teams ran a lot of Reinhardt, some teams would run some Ball, some would run some Doomfist every so often, someone would run Diva. Like, there was a lot of variety in the tank composition. In the damage composition, you would see, Genji sometimes, you'd see Mei, you'd see Cassidy, you'd see Tracer. You didn't really see a lot of Sojourn, but you'd see a lot of kind of some variety there. And then with supports, you'd see Double Flex, you'd see Lucio, you'd see Brig, you saw some Mercy, which, I didn't love it, but you did see some variety, which I thought was really cool. And some of that could just be teams are trying different things out. Some of them could be teams just playing what they're good at, especially in contenders. A lot of the time you just have teams where they say, yeah, we're not that good at a lot of things. We're a really good rush team. We're a really good Rhine team. We're going to play Rhine, and that's it. That does happen. It's not uncommon, but I think that that's one of the cool things to really kind of watch as it happens with this tournament. I think that's why it's really cool to kind of see how different styles evolve from both Overwatch League teams, contenders teams, and then next week we're going to get to see, or this week, I keep saying next week, it's this week, we're going to see the European contenders teams, and we're going to see Twisted Minds, right, the Saudi Arabian team, the largest Saudi Arabian team, who mostly play, of course, in Contenders Europe, but that's another thing of, like, unique style there, very, like, Pharah heavy kind of different style there. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how the styles play and kind of how that works, which I think is always really, really cool. And just kind of close out this Contenders bit here, I also really loved getting Contenders casters there. Door and Hurix are so good. They were so good in their games. I think they're phenomenal casters. I love them as a duo. I think they are one of the best duos in Overwatch right now. I think they're fantastic, and I'm so excited. Next week we get Moxie, and we get Dustin, and we get Kenobi and Richrad. So we get another set of casters next weekend that we haven't heard yet, and then we also get Necra and Vicky, which is cool. So I do like that we are seeing lots of cool stuff with the kind of Contenders integration, where we're getting Overwatch League talent. We're also getting Contenders talent kind of there. And then, of course, we still had Mr. X and Custa, and we had Lemmy Kiwi and Leg Day, who are the cream of the crop, all fantastic, phenomenal casters. So we're getting all the great production value with incredible casters at all levels, and we're really kind of using this as a way to bridge the pro scene and the tier 2 scene in a very good way, which I think is phenomenal, and that's really why I love it. So I think, generally speaking, those are kind of my thoughts on it. I love the Pro-Am. I'm liking it more than I thought I would. I didn't expect it to be as fun and as entertaining as it has been, and so I'm very, very excited. So just to throw some quick kind of simple, basic little predictions out for this weekend. We have Group C, which is the Boston Uprising, the Los Angeles Gladiators, the Washington Justice, and then out of Contenders, you have Team Peps and Wisp. We have Group D, which is the Houston Outlaws, New York Excelsior, and Toronto Defiant. And then from Contenders, we have Redbird Esports and Twisted Minds. So I think it's interesting. I'm really interested to see Boston play. Of all the teams that haven't played yet in the Pro-Am, Boston is the team I'm most interested in. Not necessarily think they're the best, but I think they're the most interesting because we haven't seen anything from them all kind of with like the league scrims and stuff. We've gotten nothing from Boston. So I'm very curious to see how Boston plays. There's a lot of negative press around the LA Gladiators right now, so I'm curious to see them play as well and see kind of how they do. And then, Houston looks really good too. I'm excited to see them play, and then kind of the return of American Tornado finally with Toronto Defiant. Plus, Twisted Minds, I think, is the most interesting Contenders team because I really like the kind of unique style they have, which will be fun to see. So, kind of, I expect Boston and the Gladiators to move out of Group C, and I expect Houston and Toronto to move out of Group D. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some upsets and some kind of shocks, right? No pun intended, we did see the shock get upset, so it is always possible. And so that's really where we are at right now. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on the Pro-Am, if you've been enjoying the Pro-Am. If you haven't been enjoying the Pro-Am, whatever it is, let me know your thoughts down below. But that is going to be all from me for today. Thank you all once again. If you want more videos like this in the future, consider liking and subscribing, as your content or your support of my content does help out a bunch. But that is going to be all for me. Thank you all once again. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.